Zelensky ready to amend legislation on elections during martial law. Kremlin rejects Zelensky's call for energy ceasefire, and how US Senator wants Trump envoys to be replaced as Witkoff and Kushner seem to side with Russia. The latest news next. President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he is ready for presidential elections if international partners can ensure security during the vote. Zelensky is prepared to support changes to the law on elections during martial law and is waiting for proposals from parliament, reported by Zelensky during an online press briefing. Zelensky was asked whether the United States has pressured Ukraine on the issue of elections and whether delegations had discussed potential presidential elections in Ukraine.
I have not discussed this issue. The question of elections in Ukraine, I think, depends first and foremost on our people, and it is a matter for the people of Ukraine, not the people of other states. With all due respect to our partners, I will say frankly that I am ready for the elections.
There are two issues that need addressing to hold elections. Firstly, security, how to do this under strikes, under missiles. What about our military, how they will vote? Secondly, the legislative basis for the legitimacy of holding elections. And yes, as this issue is being raised by the US President, our partners, Zelensky will answer very briefly, look, I'm ready for elections.
Moreover, I am now asking the US, together with our European partners if they wish, to help provide security for elections. Then, Ukraine will be ready to hold elections over the next 60 to 90 days. Personally, I have the will and readiness for this. I am asking MPs from our faction and all parliamentarians to prepare proposals on possible changes to the legislative framework and the law on elections during martial law. To prepare this for me, I will be back in Ukraine tomorrow. I expect proposals from our partners and MPs, and I am ready to go to elections.
Zelensky described as absurd the suggestions that he is supposedly clinging to the presidency and that this is why the war in Ukraine is still going on. In Moscow, officials effectively rejected Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's proposal for an energy ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov told Russian media. Peskov cynically claimed that Russia is supposedly working on peace in Ukraine, not a ceasefire.
A stable, guaranteed, and long-term peace achieved through the signing of relevant documents is an absolute priority.
About background, the day before, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine is ready for an energy ceasefire if Russia is ready as well. According to the head of state, Russian forces continue striking Ukrainian's energy system, and the defense forces are fully justified in responding. If the Russians are ready for an energy ceasefire, we are ready. This is very important for people, he added. About strikes on energy infrastructure, Russian forces have been attacking Ukrainian's energy system for 3 consecutive years, starting in the fall of 2022. They carry out these attacks in an attempt to provoke a humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. A large number of energy facilities have been damaged, resulting in daily scheduled power outages nationwide. Back in September, President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that if Russia attempts to cause a blackout in Kyiv, it will receive a blackout in Moscow. In March, Ukraine and Russia agreed to an energy ceasefire, but Russia repeatedly violated it by continuing to strike energy facilities in frontline regions. European countries categorically reject US President Donald Trump's statements that Ukraine is allegedly losing the war and that Russia has the upper hand on the battlefield. There have been no significant changes on the front lines and no signs that Russia can make progress, according to CNN. Assessments by military officials in Europe and the US show no significant changes on the battlefield and no signs that Russian troops will be able to achieve any rapid gains in the future. The current picture is mixed. Yes, Russia is approaching key Ukrainian supply lines, but the pace is very slow and the losses are enormous. Russians are creeping in, but it is not a fundamental change from what has been happening over the last several months, a Ukrainian military official tells the agency. Europe has reacted very skeptically to Trump's statements, pointing out that Russia has gained less than 1% of Ukrainian territory over the past year. Therefore, it is tough to call this an advantage. Trump's pessimism is making European officials wonder if the American president is trying to shift the blame for the breakdown of negotiations onto Ukraine. His statements are in sharp contrast to what Trump said 2 months ago, that Ukraine, with the support of the US and the EU, is capable of winning the war. US Senator Richard Blumenthal, a member of the Democratic Party, has said that US President Donald Trump should replace his envoys Steve Witkoff and Kushner, who are involved in a peace plan on Ukraine, arguing that they have acted in Russia's interest rather than as impartial mediators, reported by Blumenthal in a comment to Suspilne, a Ukrainian public broadcaster. Blumenthal said he is concerned that Trump is pushing Ukraine towards quickly signing a peace deal without security guarantees.
I am deeply concerned that he, Trump, appears to be abandoning Ukraine to its fate. He is forcing it to make territorial concessions that are unjust and unwise, and depriving it of the military aid needed to defend against Putin's slaughter.
Commenting on the talks, Blumenthal said that they appear completely one-sided in the way Trump's envoys have conducted them, as Ukraine is subject to multiple conditions and Russia is facing none.
Witkoff and Kushner seem biased against Ukraine. I think Trump needs new envoys. Witkoff and Kushner seem to side with Russia instead of being neutral or objective negotiators. And the entire peace plan needs to be thrown out. They need to go back to square one.
The senator also responded to Trump's call for elections in Ukraine.
Trump seems to be appeasing Putin, and elections are just another step in what he is trying to do for Putin. Putin does not hold elections. Zelensky has no need to either.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Support Ukraine, like and subscribe.